welcome to the Trails Collective interview series. I'm so happy to have you on my show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate you reaching out.
Oh, thank you. So are you currently in Vermont?
I am. I've got my down vest on. The weather has kind of shifted here, and we went from summer right into a very brisk fall. So just getting ready for winter.
It slapped us in the face here in upstate New York too on Saturday morning. Like I woke up and I was about ready to, I still had my shorts on. I had like a long sleeve, and I go out and I'm like, do I put gloves on? I don't know. It's like putting gloves on and then going from shorts to capris. It's like
Yeah,
admitting that like the snow is coming, and I
I
almost
know.
don't want to do it.
Yeah, I love fall and like everything that it brings and it represents, but it's the winter and the snow that I'm just like not ready for at all.
Yeah, well, you run mostly on the trails, and so during like basically October till March or April. I mean, are
Mhm.
are you even doing much trail running up there?
There's a little bit that gets enough traffic that you can still trail run, quote unquote trail run. It's much slower, and it could be fine one day and then the next day you're post holing. So kind of dabble, but yeah, it's a lot of dirt roads and pavement, and even with that, you never know what you're going to get, and you've got to have like your micro spikes or screw shoes on, and it's a battle, but
It's the beauty of upstate New York, and then just in the east, we're just, I definitely do use my trail shoes on the roads a lot
yeah.
during the winter, and I'm like, this is trail running, you guys, it's fine.
Yeah, new snow and ice, it's definitely trail running. It's not fast, and you've got to use all those little muscles in your ankles and your hips and everything. Um, but I love the seasons and I love Vermont, so I'll stick it out.
Yeah, well, speaking of Vermont, so one of your sponsors is Untapped, which is
Yep.
basically like a maple syrup sports nutrition company. So can you tell me a little bit more about that and how you got connected with Untapped?
Yeah, so Untapped, the basis and the sweetener in all their products is just pure maple sugar and maple syrup. And they've really stuck to using whole ingredients. So their quote unquote gels are all maple syrup based, and then have some flavors added in, but they're like, their coffee Untapped has real coffee in it. Their raspberry Untapped has real raspberries. So they've really stood behind making quality endurance fuel, which is awesome. And syrup itself is low glycemic. It's water soluble, so it's got a lot of good things going for it. And the way I got connected with them is I used to run through their sugar bush. So there's like a whole network of trails through their sugar bush that they allow mountain bikers and hikers and runners on. And they used to just see me all the time. And when they were first thinking about launching this company, they're like, how far do you think you could run on maple syrup? And I was like, I have no idea. And they gave me a bunch, and they're like, okay, go out for a run and report back. And I went like, I don't know, 30 miles or something, and it worked great. And I was like, is that a proof point for you guys? Like, is that enough, or do I need to keep going? And they're like, no, that's enough. Um, so yeah, they started putting maple syrup in packets and started with the one product, and it's taken off from syrup and waffles to drink mix, and yeah, they keep going and going.
Yeah, I was going to ask if they have waffles. They have to have waffles.
Yeah, they have a stroop waffle, and again, it's just maple syrup and maple sugar sweetening, so it's pretty neat.
That's really cool. So in addition to Untapped, you're also sponsored by Solomon
Yep.
and what's the watch? Koros?
Sunto.
Sunto. Okay,
Sunto.
sorry.
It's okay.
I Sunto.
Yep.
Yeah, so your sponsorship with Solomon started back in like 2012, right? 2011?
Yeah, it's been about 8 or 9 years that I've been with Solomon, which is truly a gift. I love that they have head to toe footwear, clothing, and all their products have worked really well for me. So it's really nice just to know that they have really high quality products that work for my body and for my running style. And it's just been a gift to be on the team and be inspired by all the amazing athletes, and be inspired for what they do with the sport.
Do they have you test to design gear?
I am not really one of their testers. I don't think I fit like the average mold, quote unquote.
What do you mean?
I mean, just the weather conditions that we have here in New England aren't typical conditions. So I've given some feedback on products before and asked them, for some more sort of burly winter gear, but I don't think what I asked for is really what the market necessarily might want.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Solomon also sponsors like Killian and
Yeah.
Courtney, and so do you guys have like athlete summits and stuff? And you all get together?
Yep, we do, and we get to try a new product and give feedback and just get to know each other more and goof around and hear about what's coming down the pipeline and sort of give the designers and the team that works in Ogden feedback on what we're experiencing and seeing with product wear and tear and what different tread patterns we like, what doesn't work well, because what works well for me here in New England might not work well for somebody in California. So they kind of have to take all of our feedback and figure out where to go with it from there.
So you've been with them for so long, starting in 2011, 2012.
Yep.
What is something that you were like, got like a glimpse of like a new product or a new gear, and now it's like mass marketed and you're like, oh, I knew that was coming. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think that would be, the shoes that they made for Killian originally when he was running Western States, the S Lab senses. We got to sort of see those be developed and be evolved and wear them before they're out on the market, and then help with the big market launch and push. And it's just really cool hearing about products and then seeing them evolve through the Solomon pipeline and then getting a pair before people get them. And like right now Solomon's coming out with a recyclable shoe, which is pretty cool, and people will start seeing those I think 2021. And there's products that they give to us that you never see come to market, which is good as well, because you're just like, no, this was a total fail, like please don't sell this.
Like what?
When they were first developing like soft flasks and handhelds and stuff, there were just some that were not, I mean, it would strap to your entire arm, and it was like having an arm flask.
Okay, like
yeah, it's just totally awkward. You're sort of like, how did this even like end up in production as a prototype?
it's like I see it,
but no, you don't need like a whole liter of water strapped to your arm.
I mean, maybe for like put them on both arms and it's stronger, like you're training if you're running like that, like the people that run with the hand weights.
Yeah, so it's pretty fun.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I just saw On actually with a recyclable shoe. It's like $30 a month or something like that. Which like in practice that actually sometimes makes sense. Like I mean, my shoe of choice right now is the Kinvara, and I probably go through a bunch of those a year. I mean, thankfully I get a pretty hefty discount with running for the running store local here and stuff, and always like if they have extra shoes or whatever, because my foot is kind of big for a female, so I've been lucky with that. But I also like always have tons of shoes that I'm giving back, and like they send them to Africa or wherever, but like I'm very attracted to the idea of a recyclable shoe. And funny story about On, just talking about like seeing the evolution of a company. So back in like 2000, when was I first getting into running-ish? Like 2016. I was part of their athlete program, so I got like free shoes and gear for a year. And I still have some of the gear, like the pullovers and it lasts for forever. I just didn't really like the shoes. Like they were more of a triathlon European-based company, and so the shoes kind of just didn't work for me. So I didn't stay with them. But now it seems like I'm like, oh dang, I should have, because it's like running company, and I'm like, I bet the shoes are a lot better now. But nah, I know what I like, so it's fine. So actually, I wanted to talk about the FKT first, but let's actually just talk about your background, because we're sort of there anyway. So folks, Aliza has run Western States in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2015, 2018, and 2019. So she is a veteran. And the highest she's placed is third, which was in 2012. And then I know from reading your blog also, I think in maybe 2014 you got in, but you gave up your spot. So what drew you to Western States in the beginning, and what keeps you going back?
Yeah, when I first came to the sport of ultra running, I was very green and didn't know much, but I did know about this race called Western States 100. It was sort of like the epic 100 that everybody talked about that I knew. Has a lot of history behind it, and I was sort of naturally just pulled towards it just because, it seemed to be like the biggest, most prestigious 100-mile race. And actually I ended up with a slot sort of accidentally. I went and ran Bandera one year, and at Bandera you can win a golden ticket, and I went and ran Bandera sort of off the couch, and I didn't have like high expectations. That's sort of like my downtime here. I kind of like November, December, I kind of decline in mileage, let my body have a rest. And so I didn't really think I was going to go down to Texas and win a slot, but I did. And at that point I didn't have a 100-miler under my belt. So I declined the ticket, because if I was going to toe the line at Western States, I really wanted to do it with the utmost respect. So that following year I went and ran Vermont 100 as my first 100-miler. And then after that I knew, okay, now I've got a little bit of experience under my belt. I'm going to try again to get a golden ticket into Western States. And again, I went back to Bandera and I was able to do that. So, and I certainly was not let down at Western States. It's, you're competing against the best of the best. Everybody that is there wants to be there. The race is just world class. It's done right, from the course to the volunteers to the race director, just really high standards. And you can just, it's just very special course to be running on. And, each moment you're out there is just truly a gift. So.
Yeah, I remember when I first got into ultra running too, that was, you hear about Western States,
Yep.
and you watch Unbreakable or Unbroken or whatever. And actually that would have been the year that
Yep.
you would have ran it the first time though.
Yep.
So granted, I would say that you were well rested when you first did Bandera, and sometimes rest is the key.
Yeah, sometimes your body just, it knows what to do and how to do it. And I certainly was not the fastest runner out there, but I ran a very consistent race. That's a lap course, and I remember I was pretty even splits. And each time I've run Bandera, it's been pretty gnarly weather. It had below freezing temperatures the first year, so all the cups at the aid stations were freezing, and like you had to break the ice on the water. And then the second year it snowed, so the weather definitely played into my favor, and sort of had the Texans questioning what was going on.
Yeah, well, the weather's going to keep getting crazier, so we're all learning how to deal with those kind of things.
Yep.
So your first ultra was though in 2004. So you are almost at 20 years in the sport, and you ran Vermont 50 a bunch of times. What keeps going? Like, I've heard about this race. Like my friend Amelia, that was like her first 100. I think in one of your race descriptions on your website, you were actually running her best friend Riley. I know Riley. I interviewed her for here. So it's a very popular course and race. What makes it so special for you?
I mean, I consider Vermont 50 and Vermont 100 sort of my home turf races. The terrain is just very typical Vermont scenery, which I love. You've got the rolling pastures, the huge stone walls, the old farmhouses, and just really like good down to earth Vermont people supporting you along the way. So it just really feels like this is home and this is my course. It's a mixture of dirt roads, sort of backwoods single track that, somebody sort of built and then maybe stopped building and then went back to building again. So I've just kind of gone back year after year, just sort of wanting to see where I stack up compared to when I was, young and foolish. But it's just, sort of like it brings all of us locals together, and we get to meet new people as well. And it's just sort of like a celebrating of our summer, and sort of like preparing all of us to go into winter, I guess.
Yeah, it is. I like that you mentioned that it's kind of like a benchmark also for you
Yeah.
to know how you're doing and comparatively speaking. I mean, of course conditions and weather and
Yeah.
whatever can change, but because you have also DNF'd there, and then you've also been trying to go for the course record at times. And so, yeah, I think that's I probably wouldn't choose a 50 miler, for my like benchmark race. I'm more of the 5K, like a half marathon, like, but to each their own. Actually, in the Trail Runner Nation podcast that I was listening to, you mentioned that anything under 50 miles just feels so fast.
Yeah.
And that thought is just like lingering in my brain because like I'm just not there. And so, what do you mean? Like a 50K is still like very long.
Oh, I mean, they're definitely long. It's just been interesting. When I first started ultra running and trail running, it was like you could kind of go out and be like really social and sort of like ease into the mileage and sort of like race the last, 10 or 20 miles. And now, I don't know if it's with more road runners are coming over or just more people getting involved in the sport, but it's like from the gun, everybody is racing. Everybody's out there racing, but it's like you don't have time to sort of like warm up and settle in. It's like you've got to go, and you've got to go now, and you've got to go for 50 miles. So it's really competitive, and it's really, pushing boundaries, and we've seen, times come down significantly for, the fastest 50 and the fastest 100. And I think they'll continue to come down. So it's just it's very social still. And you can still have great conversations, but you just got to be ready to run from start to finish.
Oh, definitely. And I would assume that, are you still coached by Brian Powell?
I am not coached by Brian Powell. We worked together for, oh goodness, 7 or 8 years. And then as his website evolved and it became more consuming, he stopped coaching. And I moved to Jason Coop. So I've been with Jason for about 3 or 4 years now.
Oh yeah, I've read his book, and I really, he's a great coach, like very sound, so I mean, good transition, I'd say. So so you've also run like local races here. I think people from Ithaca will know you won Finger Lakes 50s, you won Vermont Crest. You've also ran Cayuga. I think you got 6th last year.
I got 3rd.
But I think like wasn't that like, didn't you sign up like a week or 2 beforehand?
That was, I don't know what to call it. I don't want to say like a midlife crisis, because that's what it wasn't what it was. Over a span of 3 weeks, I think I ran a 50K, a marathon, and then Cayuga. So like 3 weekends in a row. I was sort of doing like a building phase. And instead of doing like long runs by myself, I convinced Jason to let me do races. I did Bear Mountain, New York. I did a 5-hour training run. Then I ran Vermont City Marathon the next day. And then the next weekend I went and did Cayuga. So I was pretty tired.
Yeah. So talk more about that. What do you mean a midlife crisis?
Oh, I just like kept wanting to race, and I didn't really feel satisfied with how I was performing in the races. But part of that was because I was in the middle of a training block. So I wasn't like getting proper recovery to really like go out and perform my best, which was hard for me to like accept. But and I knew going into the races like that was the case, but I get very competitive, and it was hard to not be like top form, and like, no, on a good day I should be able to keep up with first and second. But because I was using it as training, it was just a different mindset, and it was a learning experience for sure.
it's really, really hard to convince yourself like a training run isn't, or a training race isn't going to be like
Yeah.
your best. Or it's especially hard when you also hear like stories of like, oh, this was just a training run and then I won. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, it's really hard to adjust your
Hmm.
expectations, like where you think you should be versus where you actually are and what this
Yeah.
risk means in the grander scheme of what you're planning. It's really, really hard.
Yeah, and I mean, when you sign up for a 50-mile championship and it's a training run for you, a training race, that's really difficult because, where my expectations were and where everybody else's expectations were very different. And they sort of got jumbled in the middle and at times. And so, I mean, all in all, third place was spectacular. And um, but again, sort of my competitive nature, I was like, oh, if I was rested, maybe I could have gotten better. But like,
Especially someone of your esteem. I mean, like, it's hard to not put yourself on a pedestal or feel like other people are putting you on a pedestal when they might be, but it's not really about them, it's about you. And so it's like people probably, it's like everybody thinks that I should win this race because, F3 at Western States, and
mhm,
I've been there so many times, but it's so hard to
yeah,
like separate yourself from like what you think other people think of you versus what you and your coach know you're doing for your training.
yeah. So it's just, I mean, not everybody knows what you're doing and where you are with your training and why you're doing it. I was running some races to work out my fueling strategy. So I was going into races tired, and, it was more about, how hard can I push and still fuel? And, sometimes that ended up in, sort of like a disaster, and sometimes it worked out. But it's, I don't always race to purely race. Sometimes it's sort of like an experiment. So,
Yeah, but it's so like, and I think we should talk about this because you like, even like the best of the best like still struggle with where what they think other people think of them. And then ultra running is so like, it's not like being a sponsored athlete means you're on level with like someone like LeBron James. It's like
mhm.
you are still competing with the everyday runner, the normal. And so they see you like, I mean, imagine if like someone like me saw like Shalane Flanagan at my local, like I'd be like, oh, isn't she gonna win? And then she doesn't win. She's just training run. But everybody,
Yeah.
but of course I'm thinking like she can walk and beat me. Like so. It's so talk more about that. Like you have been in this sport for a very long time, and how is it as someone who has the experience that you do, has the results to your name? Like you have a list of accolades that like
Mhm.
you could hide behind the rest of your life and you could like leave the sport with royalty. But I get the sense, and I mean, I have this as well. And I think a lot of what drives the best runners in the sport is that like, there's always that little like, oh, I can do a little better. That chip on your shoulder that, I could do a little better. Or like, but it also can be like, what is everybody thinking of me? And sometimes that can drive you to do good things. But other times, at least for me, most of the time, it's like, if I'm running this race to prove something to somebody else, I shouldn't be in this race.
Exactly. And that really becomes hard. I mean, I've seen elites before enter races under sort of false names just so they wouldn't be on people's radars. So, when somebody looks at ultra sign up before the race, they don't know who that person is. And then afterwards, it doesn't go into their official results because it's not their official name. So I think there is a lot of outside pressure that if you're entering a race, you're going to enter a race and perform. I also know that there's some criticism about elites dropping out of a race when things aren't necessarily going their way because it's going to affect their ultra sign up percentages and their rankings. So rather than taking a lower ranking, they'll sometimes drop out of a race and just not finish. But I think there's a lot to be said about, even if it's not your day, grinding it out, even if you finish 30th place or 50th place instead of first. You certainly learn a lot about yourself and a lot about the other people out there. And it's really eye-opening. And, um, you know, you can't always predict that you're going to have the best day, and there's hiccups along the way, and that's okay.
Yeah. so like, are there any races that you feel like when you towed the line, not, I don't mean races that you specifically entered to be training
Mhm.
runs. I mean races where like, I probably shouldn't be here, you know, like something like that. Like, you mentioned being, having like a sprained ankle on the line of UTMB.
Mhm.
Um, Granted, that's a huge opportunity, so that probably factored into it too. Like, I might as well start, but,
Yep.
um, are there any races or instances where you're like, I probably shouldn't be here?
There was one year, and I don't even recall the specific year, that I was at Western States and I was on the line and I didn't feel that excited. And that really, like, it really, mile for mile, it became clear, like, I didn't have like the heart to really be in that race. That training cycle for Western States, if you do it year after year, it becomes really redundant and repetitive because you're running sort of the same training schedule, you're running sort of the same tune-up races. So it becomes a lot. And I remember, like, I was really heartbroken that I had potentially taken a spot from somebody else that really wanted to be there. And here I was sort of going through the motions, and so every time I have the opportunity to run Western States, I really now think about if my heart and mind and body are into being there, because the slots are so valuable that I want every person possible to have that experience.
Yeah, I feel similarly about the Boston Marathon.
Mhm.
I get asked like weekly if I have ran it and I'm going to run it, and it's the most prestigious race. I like,
Mhm.
but if I'm gonna take a spot away from somebody else, like, I damn better well want to do that
Yeah.
race, and I damn better train for it. Like, and I just, I'm still like haven't taken the training cycle. I haven't really. I've been flowing through different periods in my running life, so it's just, it hasn't happened for me yet. But when it does, it will, and
Yeah.
then I'll be ready for it.
Exactly.
So, you have recently, in the beginning of August, you um, attempted the long trail FKT.
Yep.
The current FKT holder is Aliza Lapierre, who's been on the show, and so this is your second time attempting the long trail. And I read your race report or your blogs about it, and I encourage everybody else to go read them. They're really well done. Like, I could picture myself being there, and just, you wrote a lot about the emotions that you were feeling and things like that. So you've attempted this FKT twice, and spoiler, you've been thwarted twice. So, what made you want to go back a second time?
So the first time, I, on day two, really experienced a lot of stomach issues. I threw up for most of the day. I couldn't keep down any calories or even liquid. I had lost 12 pounds throughout the course of the day. So I felt like I really didn't get to test my fitness against the long trail. I really didn't get to put in a fair shot at it because um, I was basically stopped in my tracks by my stomach. So I really wanted to figure my stomach out. I've always had trouble with my stomach for distances sort of 50 miles or longer, sort of like 10 hours and up. And it's been years and years. So finally, I found somebody that would sort of help me work through it. If you ever go to your doctor and you're like, oh, my stomach gives me trouble after 10 hours of running, they're like, okay, well, don't run 10 hours. And you're like, oh, that's not really an option. um, so as soon as I finished the long trail last year, my friend Josh really helped me sort through my stomach issues, and we tried a new diet, and we tried just some new nutrition tactics, and then we put my nutrition to the test. We did some 8-hour runs, some 24-hour runs, and a 36-hour run. And my stomach was rock solid on all those runs. So I figured, okay, let's try the long trail again. Now that I've got my nutrition sorted out, Jason helped me with my training again. So yeah, August 2nd. Once again, I took off on the long trail.
So let's put a pin in the diet perspective
Mhm.
for in the diet for a second, because you're still vegan.
I'm a vegetarian at this point.
Vegetarian.
Yep.
And so it looks like in your trajectory, you started running after college to lose a little bit of weight. And then did the vegan vegetarian diet go along with that? Or was it just like I just need to be a little bit healthier? And then you notice, wow, when I eat healthier, I run faster.
I was sort of an accidental vegetarian. I was living with somebody who is a vegetarian, and she was oftentimes cooking dinner. So I just started eating vegetarian more and more. And then the more I thought about the ethics, the more I was like, I can't think about the animal I'm eating that's on my plate. I could never watch this animal being killed or kill it myself. I could never process it. So I probably shouldn't be eating it. So at that point, I turned vegetarian, and then I went vegan for a few years. But at the same time, I was traveling a lot to different foreign countries, and being vegan sort of meant sometimes eating more and more processed foods for convenience when traveling. So, in all different countries, you can always sort of rely on them having like eggs and cheese and sort of things. So at that
Meal
point,
champions.
yeah. So at that point, I decided incorporating those back into my diet was sort of not what I really wanted to do, but for health reasons, it just was logical.
I mean, you're being ethically and conscious, and that's like the best we can do, I think. I mean, I was vegan for about 6 years, and
Yeah.
then I've gone on and off a little bit when, like, my conscience gets actually the better of me. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel so bad. But also, I learned how to cook vegan working
Yeah.
at a vegan restaurant for 6 months, and so I don't know how to cook meat. And so when I'm cooking in my house, like, I don't cook using meat or anything.
Yeah.
And when you learn how to cook and it tastes good, it's a lot better of incentive
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
eat healthier and eat more vegetarian. So yeah, it makes sense. It's like the company you keep is sometimes the best.
Yeah. And my husband eats meat, and my family eats meat, and I respect everybody's decision whether they want to eat meat or not. Um, but for myself, it's just that's where I am right now, and maybe one day I'll be able to go out and harvest my own food, and that will be okay. But for now, I'm sticking with vegetarian.
Nice, nice. So, um, what did you said his name was Brian, who was helping you with your diet?
Josh.
Josh. Okay. What did you guys figure out?
So we kind of figured out that I struggle with digesting some sugars more than some others. So we kind of cut some different foods out of my diet that might not necessarily on a normal day give me trouble, but when I'm stressing my body to the level that I am in an extreme effort, those foods might sort of just build the stress on my body. So like we ended up cutting out onions and garlic and bananas, and we just found certain foods sort of were triggering sort of a stress response in my system.
I found that when I've been up to, I don't ever like really go over, like, I think the most I've ever ran in a week is like 100 miles. But normally I stay around 80 if I'm in peak training.
Yeah.
And I find that actually, like, when I'm just like super tired, like, or not super tired, just like training and expending a lot of energy, I actually need to eat like more, like less fibrous, more like white bread, not wheat
Yeah.
bread, or like white rice, not wheat rice. And then
Yeah.
like instead of whole beans, I need like hummus,
Yeah.
because like that stuff just like in and then just out. And like, I don't even know. So, what are some other things that you've like experimented with? Do you find that when your mileage increases, you have to like vary the proportions of your vegetarian diet?
I mean, oh my goodness, I eat a lot. That's very clear. I eat more than the average person, and that's kind of embarrassing at times.
No, you're in good
Um,
company here.
I know, and people look at you like, really? Um,
Well, crazy. Running for 8 hours takes a lot of energy.
I
I mean,
know,
like, it
and
does.
I'm like the type of person, like if I'm craving cookies, I'm gonna eat cookies, and if I'm wanting French fries, I'll eat French fries. I try not to make a habit out of it, but after a big effort, it's like, all right, my body's craving that, probably because of the sodium for French fries or something, but I just ran 8 hours. Like French fries aren't going to kill me.
Yeah.
But I think if you listen to your body, it tells you a lot and sort of what it wants and how it's feeling. And yeah, it's definitely taken years and years of fine tuning and realizing that it's okay to indulge and it's okay to eat more calories than is quote unquote proper for a female my size, but
Yeah.
it all works out.
Or eat the same or more on your rest days. It's like your body will tell you what it wants.
Yeah, and it's recovering and it's working hard, and yeah, it needs those calories and those nutrients for sure.
Yeah, if people like I also for me, and I don't know if it's the same for you, like when people ask me like, oh, what's your post race or your post workout meal, and I'm like, calories, I don't care. Like
Yeah.
after one of the marathons that I did, my last one, no, the last like 2 ones ago, they were like, what was your like post run after you qualified for this? I was like, I ate so many Cheetos on that way
Yeah.
home. That was it. It was
Yeah.
there, and I was just into it. And so, I mean, and your body, like, yeah, your body will definitely tell you. And I think also it seems to me that vegetarians and vegans, we are kind of in tune with what's going on, because like, we didn't grow up eating that way. So then we sort of had to learn, and then we had to learn like, oh, maybe you should soak your beans, or like, things like that, because it hurts. So I definitely think that's also like helped me in my running. And obviously it's helped you as well.
Yeah. And obviously, I try not to just go like straight for the cookies. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have some protein and some carbs, and now I've eaten that, so now I can have my cookies. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I try to give my body what it probably needs from the nutritional standpoint, and then it's sort of like, okay, what am I craving?
Yeah.
Sort of like I can give myself that too.
Sure. Yeah. Always start with the like stuff your body needs, and then move on
Yeah.
to or the maple syrup. So the maple syrup works for you though?
It's worked really well for several years, and the Untapped team has been great on sort of modifying formulas for me when I go into a race. Like for Western states, we'll sort of up the sodium content on the drink mix, depending on the temperature and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's been fun working with them, and they've definitely got some new products in the pipeline, which I'm interested to see how those evolve. And yeah, it's good stuff.
Anything savory, because I'm a savory person, and like everything is so sweet. I just can't. I'm like, how has nobody made like a savory bar company or a savory gel? Like, come on.
So I don't know if you've tried the savory bars that Scratch Labs have made.
I've
They've
seen them, but I haven't tried them yet.
They're pretty good. Like they have a pesto one, and I don't remember like a Parmesan salt and pepper or something.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
interesting because you bite the bar and you're just like naturally expecting sweetness, right? Because it's a bar, and it's totally different. So
Yeah. Cliff
yeah,
for a while had like pizza sauce,
the
basically.
puree, yeah.
I loved that. Like that is 100%. They don't make it anymore. I was like, why? This is so good. But part of the reason I actually like doing the shorter distances and stuff now and running shorter is that I like figuring out nutrition is just,
Mhm.
I don't want to deal with it. Like I'm like, I'll go run for this 5K for like 20
Yeah,
minutes instead. I don't have to
yeah,
drink anything. I don't have to eat anything. And if I'm dehydrated and it's over quick enough, I can
yeah,
drink afterwards.
yeah. It definitely running longer distances. It's a lot more planning.
Yeah, especially for these FKTs, because
Yeah.
there aren't any aid stations. There aren't. It's really just you, which it sounds like a puzzle that people seem to really like to be figuring out recently. At least the people that I'm talking to.
Hmm.
Whereas like I sort of went like, I don't want to have to think about this at all, so I'm going to go shorter. Other people are like, we have time to figure out this puzzle. So for your recent FKT attempt, what was it like training for that, and how did you decide when you were going to go for it?
Yeah, so training for an FKT that's likely to take 5 days requires lots of time on the trail. Fortunately, I live just probably 2 or 3 miles from the long trail in Duxbury and Bolton. So trail access is really quite easy for me, just to train on the trail that I'm actually going to be competing on. But I did everything from, a couple hours on the long trail to, like I mentioned before, a full 36 hours, where the goal was just to go out and run as far as I could in the allotted time. I could take a little nap if I needed to, but really just seeing sort of what a comfortable pace was, how many calories felt comfortable per hour, getting used to moving at night in the dark and also while I was tired. So I did a lot of long efforts and then some back-to-back sort of 12-hour days, and then back on the trail the next day for another 12 hours. So you really learn how to be self-efficient, how to sort of move quickly, and you get to see a beautiful state all in the process. So it's pretty neat. And in terms of how I picked August 2nd, anyone knows that in New England, in the middle summer months, you have mosquitoes and black flies and potentially a lot of mud. But during those months, you also have the most daylight. So I sort of picked August, hoping that the insects would sort of be a little more quiet at that point, which meant a little less daylight, but also a little bit cooler temperatures. So.
Yeah. So since you've ran it twice, and this also made me think of how many times you've run Vermont. And sometimes if I'm like doubling over a course, or I do my speed workouts at the same place every
Yep.
Tuesday. And so like sometimes I'm like, oh, this felt different last week. You mentioned passing landmarks, especially on day 2, and where like in 2018 on day 2, you were like throwing up at this landmark, but this time you felt good. So I imagine, was that good for you? Because I know a lot of these FKTs are very psychological, especially in the 5 days.
Yeah.
Was that really like pushing you forward mentally as well as physically?
Yeah. So on day 2, when I made it past sort of where I was really, really throwing up, I sort of, at that point, I was lighthearted, and I made a joke about, oh, that's where I, was throwing up in front of that man who like was out trying to enjoy a day hike, and here I am like puking all over the place. But then it became a little more like, I don't know if emotional is the right word, but I was just above the Route 2 road crossing. There's this lookout that's called the Window, and that's where ultimately I pulled the plug last year. And this year my coach Jason was pacing me at that point, and I told him, I said, this is where I called you from last year, this is where I stopped. And I think he could sense that I was getting a bit emotional, and he shushed me down the trail, and he's like, okay, but we're here now, and you're moving well, and your mind and your body and your stomach are in a good space, so let's stay in the moment and let's keep going. So we kind of put that behind us and we moved forward, which was nice.
Yeah, day 2 seemed like you were you on pace or like ahead of pace? Was that on your mind at all?
So day 2 is, I would say, the most challenging day. It's got sort of the way I laid it out was very similar to the way Nikki Kimball had laid it out and Alyssa had laid it out. So day 2 ends up being mileage-wise the biggest day, and also the most vertical gain and loss. So you're looking at just about 58 miles with 25,000 feet of climbing and descent. So it's a really long day. So everybody who's ever done it always just wants to get to App Gap, which is where you sleep, and sort of put that technical terrain behind you and those miles and that amount of vert.
But then, so that date seemed pretty well, but then it says on day 3 to 4 seemed kind of like a rough stretch because it started to pour rain and you weren't sleeping. And so you described this as feeling extremely vulnerable to both the trail and the conditions, and also to your mind. And you began to like disassociate, and you were like, this was funny, where you were like developing theories about your pacers, like doing something to you, or like, stuff like that. So talk about that. That's so interesting, because I know when I get super tired or super hungry, I'll be like, that person's hiding a muffin from me. Like that. So like, tell me about that.
So day 3, a hurricane, the remnants of a hurricane came through. Originally, we weren't supposed to really see the hurricane, and the closer and closer we got to day 3, the more and more rain they were predicting, and my crew was sort of telling me like, oh, it's going to be 3 hours of rain, oh, it's going to be like 3 days of rain, and it kind of kept changing. So day 3 started out sort of with like a light rain, but then by my second set of pacers, we were in a full-on downpour. I mean, it was literally raining in every direction. Trees were blowing over. There were like rapids running down the trail. So the section from Lincoln Gap to Middlebury Gap took, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours longer than it should have, which really put us behind schedule. But I was, I sort of knew that, but I was like, okay, the rain will pass. We'll make up time. It's not a big deal. But the rain and the trail conditions really didn't pass as quickly as I thought they were going to. So we were still moving pretty slow. And my crew sort of determined that because I had lost time, that meant I was not going to sleep. And I've never been sleep deprived before, so this was a total new experience that I was going to go through. At first I was sort of okay, I was getting a little stumbly, kind of tripping, which is kind of normal. You get fatigued, you start sort of losing coordination, but then I got to the point where Jason was pacing me, and I was convinced he was trying to get me to Massachusetts so I would get COVID. I thought he was stealing my maps and my technology. Like, I have these little cheat sheets that have sort of the profile and the distance. And at one point he took them from me, and I didn't realize he took them from me because they were old, so they weren't useful. So I was like, why are you stealing my maps? Like, give me my maps back. And then my watch died, and I thought like that was his doing. And so I was very confused, but I was like trying to be compliant because I'm like just like straight edge, like rule follower. So like he would tell me to do something and I would do it. But yeah, it just got very like, I started blurring reality and what I thought was really going on, and it became interesting.
And then on day 5, you realized that what you were doing was not working. So what, at that point, what were you thinking? What were your options?
I mean, really, like once I became sleep deprived, my crew and pacers were letting me take like, I think 10-minute naps just on the trail. Like they'd throw a space blanket over me and they'd let me fall asleep for 10 minutes, and then they'd sort of poke me and it was time to get up and get moving. But when you've gone like 3 days without sleep, 10 minutes just isn't enough.
Really?
So
I never thought that.
I got to the point where I literally could not process what was going on. I would look at my watch to see the distance or the time, and by the time I kind of looked at my watch and then like brought my eyes back up, I would have forgotten what my watch said. Somebody could tell me something, but then 2 minutes later I would forget. So like Jason had asked me like, can I squirt you with water to keep you alert? And I said yes, but then he would squirt me with water and I'd be like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I'm squirting you with water. We talked about this. And I was like, no, we didn't talk about this. Like, cut it out. So it just, yeah, like I had just like disassociated from reality. I thought my husband was dead. I thought like I was never going to see my family again. I had no clue. I had no idea.
So ultimately, you end up, when did you know that you weren't going to set the FKT?
I like, again, I got to the point where I couldn't really think. So literally all of my energy was put into staying upright and putting one foot in front of the other. And again, I thought my pacers had some master plan where they were trying to do something to me. So it was just me being compliant, me putting one foot in front of the other, me eating and drinking when they told me to eat and drink. And beyond that, I couldn't think. So I sort of like lost sight of what my goal was and why I was out there, because I was just trying to do what I was told. And then finally, when we were about 14 miles out, or maybe 15, 16 miles out, and finally George hiked in because he sort of got word of how badly sleep deprived I was. He came in and we sat down for a few minutes and talked. And I asked him if he was real. Like, I didn't even know if he was like real and still alive. And at that point, it sort of like started sinking in, like, okay, like the amount of time I have left on the clock, I can't cover the amount of miles left. Nor can, I didn't feel safe because I couldn't think or do anything for myself really. So we kind of hiked down to where my crew was, and then George and I talked for a while again, and just decided that at that point I was going to stop, was going to finish at a later point, and that it just, because of the weather and other things, it just wasn't meant to be.
You could go back and like finish the 14 miles tomorrow and set and like FKT or SKT, like slowest known time. It's been like a month.
I actually did finish yesterday.
Yes.
I just posted a blog about it a few minutes ago. Yeah, George and I knew the day that I stopped on the trail that I wanted to go back and I wanted to finish. Whereas last year, I just didn't feel like I had made it far enough. Like, it was just, there was so much unfinished business. This year, it was like I was so close. So we went down and I did 9 miles by myself, and then George and my dog did the last 5 with me. And I was like, I didn't get the FKT, but I bet you I had the fastest last 14 miles out of everybody. So yeah, I did finish. That was really important to me. And now I can say I've done the long trail from end to end.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. But really though, SKT, like that could be a thing. I'll do them too. Like, I think it's great. I keep saying that I set the FKT between like my desk and the fridge, or like my desk and like turning off my tea water when it's boiling.
Strava segment. It's all you.
Yes. So switching gears. Well, actually, do you want to go back?
Oh, to the long trail?
Yeah.
I do want to go back. I don't know what that's going to look like. And I want to go back because I still believe that I can challenge the record. And I still think that there's a lot of lessons to be learned out there. So I'm not sure if it will be self-supported, unsupported, what it will look like, but the trail is definitely still very intriguing to me.
You just need like another year to like let this one, get past it.
Yep.
So switching gears a little bit, I am very interested in just like the daily training and the weekly training of athletes like yourself. And you mentioned also in previous blogs and interviews, like, that you did CrossFit. Do you still do CrossFit?
I do not. I wish I did. My hope is to actually go back pretty soon. I started doing CrossFit, or I originally started doing CrossFit because I thought it was really odd that I could run 100 miles, but I couldn't do a pull-up. So I sort of wanted to be more well-rounded as an athlete and just more sort of functional fitness stuff. And I sort of joined just sort of like at the height of CrossFit when boxes were popping up all over the place. And I joined our local Champlain Valley CrossFit affiliate. They were great. I sort of told them, like, this is my background, these are my goals, and they sort of helped me tailor the daily workouts to my needs, because I wasn't going in there to get big and bulky and necessarily like set PRs on a back squat or a snatch or something. But I really appreciated like how important form is to them, and just stretching and moving your body and realizing deficiencies. And I found that doing CrossFit, sort of when my mileage was lower during the winter months, really helped me like set a strong foundation for spring and summer. So, and I thought the community was exceptional. It was just a great group of people, and just athletes supporting athletes. So definitely something I want to get back to.
Yeah, I was going to ask if like that was part of your winter training. Do you
Yeah,
still do weekly not speed work, well, that too, but weekly strength training and things like that?
just at home, but I certainly don't think, I think just like any setting, you typically push yourself harder and you're more accountable when you're around other people, I think. And when you can sort of encourage each other along the way. And I always just appreciated like the extra set of eyes just to make sure like my form was proper. Because like anybody knows with weightlifting, you can, compensate and do things incorrectly, and that can lead to injury. So um, again, I hope to get back, and um, yeah, it was cool because, people could help me on my weaknesses. And then oftentimes for a CrossFitter, running is their weakness. So I'd help them with the running components, and it was pretty neat.
That's cool. Yeah, the
Yeah.
CrossFit community is always something that I think they really nailed. Like, say what you want about the founder and everything like that, but they really were just like trail running. It's
Right.
like they made people feel like they belonged.
Yeah, it was really cool. The year I joined was Matt Fraser's, I think, first year in CrossFit, and he was at our local box. That was his home box. So, he's now the fittest man in the world for like 3 years. So, got to see some pretty cool progressions, which is awesome.
Yeah. Do you have any so do you have any racing that's coming up or any more FKTs? Like I'm assuming you've been probably taking the last month down.
Yeah.
But is anything exciting you right now?
I mean, I've more just been running with friends and enjoying time on the trail here locally. I just helped a group of women do their first Mansfield Camel's Hump double summit. So it's, the two highest peaks in Vermont in one push, and they had never done it. So it was really cool supporting them along the way, and seeing them accomplish that. Um, I have not committed to any races this fall just because of COVID still. We're really lucky here in Vermont. Our rates are super low. I think the lowest in the nation. So to me, it would feel at this point a little selfish to travel to somewhere that has higher rates and then come home. That would sort of require, a couple weeks of quarantine and not going to work and stuff like that. So for now, I'm just going to stay put and, dabble in the mountains here, and catch up on house projects and see what 2021 brings.
Yeah, we can only hope things get well a little bit more normal, but also I hope we're evolved.
Yeah. Yeah. So just trying to stay safe and keep everybody around me safe. And, I enjoy racing, but I also really enjoy training. So if I need to stay around here, that's okay.
Yeah, this year, I'm perfectly fine not racing right now. I mean, I like racing, I really do, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
But it also has helped me to like reflect on all the amazing experiences that I've had. And
Yeah.
I feel like in the moment, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed them that much. But I mean, just now, like, oh yeah, I did do that. That was so cool, and just stuff like that. It's been really fun too.
Yeah, I think, originally once COVID really came, like the guidelines were that you weren't supposed to run with people outside your family. So, I went months on months running by myself. And then it was a huge gift to be able to run with my friends again and with my training partners. And so I'm just trying to remember like those are the important things. And, racing's great, but that's sort of like the cherry on top. So,
Yeah, it's about the journey.
yep.
So, speaking of the journey, to close out the interviews, I'd like to play a game called Ideal Aid Station. Would you like to play?
I would.
I think you'll be good at this. All right. So this is like you're halfway through your 50-miler. You're coming to an aid station, and this is what you want to be there. All right. So Sweet snack.
I always go with maple syrup.
Is that a drink though?
So they do a maple lemon tea, which is called Maple-Aid, which it's sweet.
Okay, favorite salty snack.
Oh, I'm a big nut butter fan, like a good salty almond butter.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite brand?
Oh, trail nut butter, actually.
I haven't tried that yet. I don't think. Yeah, the trail butter or whatever. I don't think I've tried.
Yeah, they have some really good flavors, like mixtures of things. They have one that has coffee in it, and I think dark chocolate. It's really good.
Oh yeah, I get that little caffeine boost.
Yep.
Favorite hot food.
Oh goodness, I really got into a couple things on the long trail: mashed potatoes, quesadillas. Yeah, I would say those are the two.
Those are good melty stuff.
Yep.
Favorite sports drink.
Untapped maple tea.
Okay. Non-sports drink.
Oh, I would say I have to say kombucha or just like iced coffee.
Does the kombucha though, like kind of like gurgle in there?
I wouldn't do it like if I was racing, like FKT long stuff. It's sort of okay in like little sips. But I don't do soda, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm a glugger, so like
yeah.
when I get that kombucha, even at work, I'm like,
yeah.
oh, I just drowned half the bottle, and now I just can't even move.
So I used to be a huge seltzer drinker.
I love seltzer,
and that was sort of kiboshed on my diet. So I mean, like a year ago, I would have said seltzer like hands down.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Oh, that stinks.
I know, it's a total bummer. I allow myself seltzer when I fly on an airplane. It's like my indulgent treat now.
Oh yeah. Seltzer and the cookies, you know.
The stewardess is like just looking at me like, why are you so excited for a club soda? Like,
yeah. So, can I please have it in a glass? Like,
yeah.
Favorite item of gear that you would like at your aid station, or item in general? It doesn't have to be clothes.
Oh, like item of gear. I mean, I rely a lot on squirrel's nut butter, like something like at an aid station that's huge if you're having issues. But my favorite piece of like everyday gear besides my shoes is like I feel naked without a Solomon pack on because I always like to carry extra little things.
Okay. Yeah. Which pack do you have?
I have them all probably.
Oh, okay.
But I'm definitely an over preparer, whether it's like calories or hydration or like, oh, you need a cough drop, I've got one of those, or oh, you need your photo taken, I've got my GoPro.
That's great.
I just want to be prepared for any situation.
All right. Last question. If you could have a celebrity or somebody you admire meet you at the aid station, maybe even run a few miles with you, if they could keep a pace with you, who would it be?
Oh, that's a tough question. Oh boy. If it was not a trail runner, I would say Barack Obama, I think would be really intriguing. And I think he could definitely keep up as well.
Oh yeah, that guy's fit.
Yeah, that's who I'm going to go with.
That's a good answer. I like that. Well, Aliza, thank you so much for coming on this interview with me. This was so much fun. Where can people find you online?
That's a great question. I would say social media is not my strong point, but Facebook, just put in my name, Aliza Lapierre, and I will pop up. I don't think there's many of me out there. Google my name and my blog will come up. Yeah, but I'm not hard to find.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll put the links in the show notes to this episode. And thanks again for coming on the show, Aliza.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you.
Bye.